hello there, welcome. This is a very short introduction to a stream that never got anywhere because there was technical issues and, we had to stop. So it's all about surrealism with myself and Vulgarian Troglodyte, which we're going to be doing again on Sunday, live. If the technical aspects are right. So the idea was 11 o'clock in the morning, live in GMT. We're doing it again on my channel. But I'm going to release the first 15 minutes, which was always shot before. So you saw what we did, because we've already done that. We can go into the next part of the discussion without having to go back to this. So we're just putting it up so everyone can see, including us, so we can see what we said. So we can move on from there and go to the next part of the discussion when we start again. So that's the idea, is we put this up and and we don't have to repeat, basically. So just you see this extended trailer for the discussion on Sunday, and I hope you enjoy it. That's me for now. I'm now just going to cut to the discussion and then the video will end after that. Right. Bye. So we're recording, so it's okay, I can edit the bit to when we start and when we stop. I can just edit it and upload it later. It's not a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Can't believe all this. I thought it was going to be simple. Like 22 people, how could you go wrong?
And
But
hopefully it's just a one-time thing. And yeah.
yeah, I'm going to close the door. Yeah, I was so used to the easy elements, and it was like, I just couldn't figure out what's going wrong here. Like, we're so used to the normal way of doing things. It's like, I don't get it. But there we go. All right. So, do you want me to start? Just get it going.
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah. Right. So hello there. Welcome to this podcast about surrealism. If we sound a bit flustered, it's because we've spent the last half hour trying to set this up and had technical issues that were absolutely insane. So I thought we'd be like halfway through this podcast, but now instead we're just starting. So hopefully the rest will go fine. So we have the Vulgarian Troglodyte here as my guest. There is no Ronan. Ronan excused himself for surrealism in film. He wasn't really his kind of thing. He thought it was more of our kind of thing than his. So welcome, Vulgarian.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here after all the trouble with the audio. So
Yeah, it was nuts. Um, I've been beating this one for a while because I've always been interested in surrealism because it's something that's kind of been it's an excuse for people to say it's just weirdness. And it's actually a political movement from the 1920s and even before that. And it's about something, and I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about surrealism in film. Since we've talked about politics in film before, I thought you're the kind of perfect person to talk to about it. So we're going to have a general discussion about it. We've also got 5 films brought up. Now, Bulgarian here knows what films I've chosen. I have no idea what he's chosen. So he can surprise me. I'm sure I can think of one of them that you may have chosen because I left off my list because so in case you wanted to do it. But mainly I've been um so I'm in the um I'm clueless about what you've chosen. So what's your take on surrealism? Just to
yeah,
get
I
you
think I yeah, I think I originally got into it back in actually high school when I had a history class, and the textbook for that class had a picture of one of Salvador Dali's paintings, and that painting blew me away, and I got interested in surrealism and also painting due to that course and seeing
can you
that
turn your mic up a little bit?
surrealist.
Can you figure
And
find
yeah,
it?
you know, or maybe I just have to talk a bit more loudly or something. I don't.
All right, that's fine. That's okay. I can do it later. It's okay. I can
Yeah.
up with my editing software there. Don't worry.
But did you hear what I was saying?
Yeah, I can hear fine. Yeah, I was trying to make sure it was clear for people who listen.
Yeah.
So continue.
Well, I'll
So,
try. Yeah, I'll try to talk a bit more loudly, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I was saying that yeah, I got into surrealism due to Salvador Dali paintings, and then bit after that, I got into cinema more seriously. And David Lynch, for example, was one of the first directors that I got into very seriously. And of course, he's kind of the more mainstream version of surrealism. And then as I've grown older, I've really gotten into these more incomprehensible, weird films that play with the narrative and do these crazy, colorful visuals and stuff. And yeah, I don't have like that much kind of formal academic knowledge on surrealism, but I think I know the kind of basic characteristics of surrealism. And yeah, it's been something that I've been interested, I guess, for a decade now. Yeah.
yeah, because I read up a lot about it last night just to be the same, just to make sure I was clear. Another thing is, like, you already knew it, but you want to make sure you kind of have it clear in your head, like, because I get interested, and it's just because it was different from the norms. It didn't offer any answers to the normal visuals, really. Like, and like, surrealism really started with the kind of 1920s, even though it had been built up before that, but it was very much a left-wing movement against the kind of fascism of like the traditional narratives, really, of obvious narratives, obvious solutions. Because World War One had happened, and there was lots of craziness from the trenches, and it was the idea that realism wasn't really good enough. Realism didn't really explain everything that was part of the world. And it was kind of a reaction to realism and like authoritarianism to create these like the kind of images that weren't explained and weren't obvious. So then you into like surrealism in films, surrealism in art, surrealism in poetry. But that's just the general thing for people listening about surrealism, how it started. Trust me, I'm sure we'll never go into as much detail about that. But
Yeah.
I thought it'd better put it in. But that's the kind of thing that interested me about surrealism was the idea of like it was like often experiences rather than, you know, something that's easily explainable. Like you can watch something and understand it emotionally, and you can get things that are understandable in some way, but not understandable in other ways. And it could be upsetting, it could be strange, and but it's not trying to be safe. And I think a lot of like the mainstream filmmaking is we try and explain everything, and surrealism is like we're not trying to explain everything. This is stuff that's in your head, and we might not understand it all. So it all went into stuff like the Freudian stuff and the Carl Jung stuff of the shadow side, and all of that stuff is perfect for surrealism. We've kind of gone back away from that a little bit now because it seems too intellectual for our stupid era that we live in.
Yeah, I did have one a class at university. It was a like a philosophy class on political emotions, and there the teacher actually talked about Louis Buñuel a little bit and his famous surrealist film Andalusian Dog or Un Chien Andalou,
Yeah,
and they talked about how that kind of represents different types of political emotions like disgust and hatred. So that's kind of an example of how a surrealist film can be very political and philosophical and not just some weird nonsense. Can
yeah,
people think it's just weird nonsense, but it's not. And like I always say on my channel, that I don't think we always have to understand the art that we consume. Sometimes it's just nice to experience something that you don't understand and the fact that you don't understand it creates that kind of awe-inspiring feeling, and it's often those surreal experiences are often more profound due to that it's kind of more elemental, it's more emotional rather than just purely analytical and realist.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the big things when I was like a teenager, one of the big things that came out then was Twin Peaks, which was basically surrealism on mainstream TV, which was unusual to have that, like full-on surrealism. Because surrealism doesn't need to be spedali; it can be just a feeling through something that kind of feels kind of normal but isn't quite normal, and it can explore things that are just within society that you can't quite explain. And this was full on surrealism. And then you talk to people who weren't really into surrealism at all, but they loved Twin Peaks, so they were getting surrealism through something they didn't quite understand, but they were getting the feeling of it. So that was like a big thing for me. Was like Twin Peaks was like, oh, this is kind of even though I'd heard of Noel and I heard of these other directors, I didn't really get into them till later. I mean, Buñuel was probably the first like surrealist director that I knew I was watching a surrealist director. But even before that, I was like into Kubrick films, and Kubrick has a lot of surrealism in his films. He's like, if you look at even like something like Doctor Strangelove or 2001, the logic of it all is not realism at all, and the acting style is not realism. There is a kind of taint of surrealism to his films. If you look at The Shining, it's very kind of surrealism. It's not a traditional, conventional horror film. And then like, Brian De Palma as well, his stuff has a sort of surrealist influence, even though it's more mainstream, it still has influence. It's not as flagrant as David Lynch, who really is the kind of mainstay of like public surrealism in America. But these other directors obviously had influences of that as well.
Yeah, and we could also mention that there are so many different types of surrealist films. So surrealism is not necessarily a genre, but it's more of a style. So for example, my list has like surreal kind of horror movies, but it also has like surreal kind of more beautiful kind of whimsical movies, and then there are those surreal like well, just pure kind of art house uh,
Yeah,
theme focused political movies. So there are lots of different types of surreal films. And I think one of the reasons why most people don't like again, surrealism is not necessarily the visual style, but mostly just the kind of incomprehensible nature of many surrealist
yeah,
films, because most people love to have kind of a clear plot and then kind of likable characters, and that's the only thing they care about. Most people don't care about that much about the like visual side of filmmaking or the kind of vibe, atmosphere side of filmmaking. They just want a great story that they can relate to. But I'm on the other hand completely different. That I love lots of films just based on the visuals and the mood, and I'm also very much interested in those kind of more abstract ideas and themes. So I don't necessarily need a kind of a plot in my films. I'm happy if the films don't have any plot, but
yeah.
they just have beautiful visuals and interesting ideas. So
Yeah, I also find sometimes in mainstream films they feel like they have to explain things that are you've got them hooked by an interesting visual or interesting idea, and then have to explain it, and it's like, who cares the explanation? You're just trying to make people feel good about themselves. And it's like the explanation never works as well as the idea, which is something like David Lynch understood entirely. It was like, you don't need to explain half this stuff. It's just it is what it is, and that's it. And sometimes I can explain little bits and bobs, but even that, it's not the full story. And the ambiguity is more interesting than the um explanation, really. Because I always went much more for like what's the emotion of the thing rather than the explanation. I was much more like, what does it mean in multiple levels? I like films where I can keep rewatching them and figure out different things about them and not have one explanation. And some films
Yeah,
kind of get close to surrealism but don't quite make it because they have to kind of explain things. And it's like very annoying, at least for me.
yeah, yeah. And the great thing about surrealist films is that you can kind of interpret them in so many ways that the filmmaker isn't necessarily trying to say anything very specific with their films, but they kind of leave it up to the
Can
viewer. But then
stop
if
for
you
a
have a
second?
film,
Let's stop.